how many customers do you have approximately?
Between 14 and 15 million customers.
Your customers give you their genetic information for you to run various tests on, is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
And I mean, that's pretty sensitive stuff, isn't it? Somebody's genetic information, is there anything more personal than that?
I would agree with you, Senator, that genetic data is sensitive information.
And so now you're just going to sell all of it? 15 million people, bunches of kids, maybe millions? It's just going to be sold in the open market?
You already know what it is. It's your boy Laid Back with another reaction, another review, another episode. Hey, TikTok, you up to bat. Bah! It's your boy Laid Back. Welcome back to my channel. Hey, two things we got to do. You got to hit that subscribe button. I'm drinking this water. You already know what it is, man. You are the prize in 2025. You are the prize in 2025. Make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you hit the notification bell. Stay up to date with all the videos. We back with another reaction. We got more conspiracy. This is around like the pharmaceutical medicine. You know, it's going to be some stuff in here. So you make it to the end of this one, you a real one for real. Make sure you put that in the comments, man. I don't think we hit 1,000 comments on the last video. I don't think we did. I mean, it's still up, so you can still go and comment, but I'm just saying, like, I'm hearting every comment. Let's try to hit 1,000 on this one. It's up to y'all, though. It's up to y'all. But I also got a TikTok playlist. If you into this stuff, you can binge watch, man. But look, I would just say, proceed with caution. It's a lot of stuff in there, so proceed with caution. But let's go ahead and get into it. Fire Squad, what's popping? Let's get it.
The truth is, the pharmaceutical industry and the healthcare industry at large is the largest funder of government. It's the largest funder of think tanks. It's the largest funder of academic research. It's the largest funder of news funding. It's 50% of news funding.
Wow.
So the objective,
so they basically infiltrated every.
They're the largest funder of every single institute. They're the largest funder of medical groups. They're the largest funder of civil rights groups, actually. Wow. The NAACP. Yeah. So every group that we hold sacrosanct, Harvard, the NIH is highly, the FDA, as you've pointed out, is more than 50% directly funded by the pharmaceutical industry. And then food's not far behind.
Do your own research. This is going to be crazy.
So let's just sort of begin with a recap. And like I said, I have so many listeners from around the world who don't quite understand the American healthcare system. And you might have been startled to see that some people were celebrating or glad that the CEO of a healthcare company was murdered, and in a very sadistic way, really. So let's just start with me trying to explain that emotion, which, just to be very clear, I do not share it. I will never condone murdering people, a vigilante system, none of that. But it's important for you to know that America's healthcare system is in fact a drug cartel, okay? It's a partnership between the government and private insurance companies to basically price gauge. They make ordinary procedures that should cost hundreds of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars. So it is not capitalist. You will see people speaking about, well, capitalism and free markets, it's a failure. Look at the healthcare system. No, that is not an example of the free market system, okay? What is the free market? Ladies and gentlemen, in a free market scenario, you should obviously know how much something costs. That's pretty basic, right? You walk into a store, a shirt says it's $100. You say, oh no, that's way too expensive for a t-shirt. I'm not paying that. So you walk out of that store, and then you walk across the street to a different store, and it says, hey, we sell t-shirts for $20. And you say, sold. Okay, so the guy next door who's got it for $100, he's either going to lower his prices or he's going to go out of business. That's how a fair free market environment works, okay? In the healthcare industry, you walk into a doctor's office. You have no idea how much anything costs. They can't tell you. Sorry. They can only tell you how much things cost after you have had the procedure. You get sent a bill, and your insurance company pays maybe some of it, and then you kind of have to pay the rest. You pay deductible towards that bill that you don't know how much it's going to cost into the future. And you basically have to keep paying your insurance company in advance of you even getting ill or getting sick. Yeah. And your insurance company also tells you exactly which doctors you're allowed to go to. You can't shop. You can't be like, well, I think this doctor's better. It's like, no. This is your healthcare plan. These are the doctors that you can go to. And of course, they're doing all of these deals behind closed doors, and the patients are completely blindfolded, okay? So what happens if you had just removed these insurance companies? What happens if you had removed these major insurance companies like Ryan Thompson, United Healthcare? Well, everything good is what would happen. A great example of that is laser eye surgery. So that procedure used to be covered by insurance, and it therefore used to cost tens of thousands of dollars, because they're like, we're making up the prices as we go along, ha ha ha, $30,000. Then the insurance company said, you know what, we're not going to cover that anymore. We're not going to cover LASIK eye surgery because we consider it to be cosmetic. So guess what happened? Doctors started competing. Yeah, you had to walk into the store, you'd see the price, and the doctors had to compete with one another. Today, the average price of LASIK eye surgery for both eyes is just $4,100. That is the average price, 2023, $4,100 for both eyes. That's incredible. That really is incredible. And I wanted to explain that to listeners because, like I said, you may not be aware, it's drug cartel.
Drug cartel.
This one will shock you. The largest merger ever done in Germany was Bayer-Monsanto, where Bayer, which is a pharmaceutical company, merged with Monsanto, which is an agrochemical company in the United States. If you look at what Bayer makes, they make cancer drugs for things like non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And if you look at what Monsanto makes, which is Roundup, which is the most widely used pesticide in America, the cancer that it causes is non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. They paid out $11 billion in the past couple of years for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma cases. So the companies are merging that are directly known to cause the disease with a medical company that has a treatment for the disease. Like, this is very, very dark. And so like Callie said, it's kind of this revolving door between create the illness, treat the illness, and hide the science that tells us what's happening.
But this is all result of the food industry wanting food cheaper. And we spend per capita half as much on food as they do in Europe. But we spend 3 times more per capita on healthcare. So my big point to everyone is this is not the free market at work. This is food companies lobbying to have neurotoxins and endocrine disrupting chemicals on our food that are toxic, that aren't allowed on any other food in any other developed country, in order to make food a lot cheaper. And then to your point about, what do these chemicals do? It increases estrogen. And these kids are inhaling hormone disrupting chemicals. So and now the New York Times recently had a front page article that puberty rates, particularly among women in the United States, are plummeting. People are hitting puberty years earlier. Girls are hitting puberty.
Young? The average girl in America is hitting puberty, which is sexual maturity, 6 years earlier than they were in 1900. 6? We have the earliest puberty rates of any continent in the world. It's age 10 and 10 to 13. And this is in large part thought to do because of we're literally giving children estrogen with all the plastics we're ingesting, which are xenoestrogens, meaning they are exogenous artificial estrogens, and the pesticides, which can activate the estrogen receptors like atrazine. I mean, you can put atrazine, which is a pesticide that we spray about 70 million pounds of in the US every year. It's not legal in Europe, but it's sold to us from international countries.
It's not legal in Europe?
No, you cannot use it. And you put this on a developing male frog embryo, and it turns into a female frog. What? That's how much of an estrogen or an endocrine disrupting chemical that it is.
What? Nah.
How many customers do you have approximately?
Between 14 and 15 million customers.
Your customers give you their genetic information for you to run various tests on. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
And I mean, that's pretty sensitive stuff, isn't it? Somebody's genetic information. Is there anything more personal than that?
I would agree with you, Senator, that genetic data is sensitive information.
And so now you're just going to sell all of it? 15 million people, bunches of kids, maybe millions. It's just going to be sold in the open market?
As Senator, the good news, as I mentioned, is that the 2 bidders or buyers for the company, one is Regeneron, which is
that's the big pharma company? It doesn't make me feel any better.
It's a large pharmaceutical company.
All right, so you're gonna take 15 million Americans' genetic information and you're gonna sell it to somebody, and your message to us is today, trust us, it'll be fine. Maybe it's a big pharma company. Maybe we'll get lucky. Maybe they'll treat it right. I thought your privacy code, your privacy commitment said that consumers had a right not to have their information shared with anybody else without their consent. Ooh. I mean, I've got your privacy statement right here. It says that without their consent, you can't share their information. You're about to sell it.
Senator, that consent is, essentially for,
not real.
Not share for research purposes, and we are not selling it for research purposes. Our customers' data is their own. They have the right at all times to access that information. They can edit it.
Well, sure they can, but you're about to sell it to who knows who. They can't control it. You said to Senator Moody that consumers have complete control of their data. Complete. How can they have complete control if you're about to sell it without their consent?
Whoa. Senator, they can delete that data anytime up until the sale and after.
Oh, okay. Delete.
Oh, hell no.
Come on, y'all. Come on, man.
They can delete the data. After you announced your sale, your deletion page went down. I hold in my hand here an article from the Wall Street Journal. 23andMe site goes down as customers struggle to delete their data.
Customers can go on and they can delete their data.
What happens when they go onto your site to delete their data?
When a customer logs into their account at 23andMe, they go to their settings page, and there's a section there where just click delete my data. It confirms that they want to delete their data, and it's deleted automatically.
Is that true? Let's take a look. Let's take a look.
Oh, they about to pull it up.
They go onto your page, they get an opportunity. It says permanently delete the data. So they click the button that says permanently delete the data, and then they get a notification that says your account is no longer accessible. How do they know if they can't access their account anymore? How do they know their data's been deleted?
Because we send them a notification that their information has been deleted. You know, our policies state that, you know, we will delete their data within 30 days, and in most cases, it is automatic and happens much quickly.
And when you delete it, it's deleted. It's gone forever.
All the genetic data is deleted forever, and yes.
Really? Because that's not what your privacy statement says in the fine print. Let's read it. What your statement says is, we retain personal information for as long as necessary to provide the services and fill the transactions you have requested, to comply with our legal obligations, resolve disputes, enforce agreements, et cetera, et cetera. And then it goes on, 23andMe and or our contracted genotyping laboratory will retain your genetic information even if you choose to delete your account.
23andMe, it does not retain any genetic information regarding the consumer once they delete their account. We do.
It says right here that you will retain genetic information, including date of birth and sex, even if you choose to delete your account. This is your privacy policy. I'm just quoting from it.
Yo, what?
I got a job in Edmonton, Alberta, at a large cancer center to run a large cancer trial with some cutting edge cancer treatments and diagnostics. And I did that for a few years. And then unfortunately, I ran into some corruption in the Canadian healthcare system, which I had never anticipated. I was a product of the system, right? I'd graduated all my training in 2010, fully Canadian trained, specialized. And I ran into corruption that I didn't expect to be in Canada. And so my cancer program was actually sabotaged. Initially, they tried to basically bribe me away. They would pay me my monthly salary to stay at home. And they said, but you can't see patients, you can't treat cancer patients, or we will have security escort you out of the building.
When I worked for the drug industry, science was completely abandoned. These drug companies that I was interviewing with had no problem telling me, look, we design drugs based on treating symptoms. We don't cure. That's a business model, okay?
A business model.
Allows you to give a drug to a person for life.
Right.
The next level of drug advertising is inventing disease. When you run out of symptoms, you don't have any more clientele. With psychiatric medications, you can invent diseases all day long. There's two words that a psychiatrist fears. Prove it. And if the doctor can't do it, 9 times out of 10 they can't, then don't take the drug. I wondered, as a chemist, I'm making these drugs, they're proving deadly in our labs, and they're proving deadly in other labs, dangerous, ineffective. How are they selling them? Big Pharma has the best marketing department in the world. Geniuses. You simply pay to report that the study showed positive results.
Wow.
You're paying them. You're buying science. At least 125,000 people dying every year from prescription drugs. You would think that you'd spend more in research to try to offset the death toll. No. Keep going with marketing. Market. Hypnotize them and drug them. And get them into their psychiatrist so they can swallow the next Cymbalta or the next Prozac or whatever they're going to package it as and name it as.
Yo, I told y'all this was gonna be.
I feel like the field has been corrupted. And it's actually the way that healthcare has been corrupted across the board. So when we talk about health insurance, the pharma industry, anti-aging industry, a lot of it has been corrupted with capitalism. And I say that as someone who's actually pro-capitalism. But I believe healthcare is a commodity that cannot be Uberized. I love Uber. I love Lyft. I love the idea of being able to call something on demand. Doesn't quite work for healthcare. You demanding what you want for your body when you're not the expert doesn't always yield the best results. We've seen that time and time again. I see it with my patients when they come in and it's very clear that they have a viral illness, but they demand antibiotics or they demand a medication that's going to help them live longer. Doesn't exist. We don't have yet the evidence to sell these things to people, to explain them to people. But there will always be a person who will take some new information, some preliminary data from an animal model, from a petri dish, and sell it as the next great thing.
That is a fact. That is a fact.
When you take a medication, most people think all of the side effects are on the label. They're not. There's not a single drug that doesn't cause a nutritional deficiency. That's not on the label. There's not a single drug. If you're taking a simple drug like, I mean, you know this one, metformin, vitamin B12, coenzyme Q10, magnesium, and it's depleting your body of those minerals. Well, birth control is one of the worst. Birth control depletes your body of almost every single B vitamin. Wow. It depletes your body of magnesium. I've seen every time I had a woman come in and we were getting off birth control, major candida and yeast issues.
And they're getting off.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I had a patient come in today and she came in with her bag of supplements and she's like, before you say anything, I just want to say I only take natural supplements. I don't take any prescription medications. I don't trust big pharma. And you might be like, well, you're a naturopathic doctor. You must hear this all the time. Yes, but I also have to inform my patient that all the supplements that she was taking were created by big pharma. Wow. Her jaw literally hit the floor. So I'm just going to leave this right here so you can take a screenshot. I bet you didn't know that Pfizer created Centrum Silver in emergency, or that Nestle bought and now owns Garden of Life and Procter & Gamble owns New Chapter. Now, am I saying that all of these supplements are bad and you shouldn't be taking any of them? Do what you will, but I just want everyone to be informed that all of these supplements are owned by the same companies that you are so afraid to take prescription medications from. This is why I created my own line of supplements so that I avoid this headache and I know exactly where my products are coming from and they're surely not being funded by big pharma.
Whoa.
Is what they're presented to be. But it's not just big pharma. That's where people misunderstand big medical, your surgeons, your doctors, the big insurance companies. Everyone has a part to play in this disaster that we're calling a healthcare system. That's not. It's a sick care system. We do not practice preventative medicine. We do not prevent disease states. We wait for somebody to get really sick and then we give them a pill. And we treat the symptoms, not the root cause. And it's because the model is built in a manner that is not conducive to practicing preventative care. In fact, most insurance companies won't cover preventative care. Less than 2% of an insurance company's spend is geared towards preventative care. Most of the time, if you try to get any sort of preventative care, the carrier will deny it. One example I can give you is if you are pre-diabetic, you're on the verge of diabetes, we know if you transition to diabetes, it will cost 7-fold annually in healthcare expenses to keep you basically up and running. Why would an insurance company not proactively try to get you from progressing into that disease state? The answer is because just like big pharma, just like everything else, it's based on quarterly earnings. And they know we got to hit these numbers. And they also know the average American switches jobs every 2.5 years. And most Americans are insured through their employer. So their thing is, do we spend the money on this person today, this man or woman today, to treat a disease state that's going to be somebody else's problem tomorrow? Probably not. It's probably not worth it. There was a small little company that reached out to the Third Reich and said, hey, we need 150 participants for our clinical trial. The Nazi regime shipped 150 healthy Jewish women to this pharmaceutical company to test its products. Within 6 months, there's letters back to the Third Reich from this pharmaceutical company saying none of them made it through the initial phases of our trial. They killed 150 women. We kindly request that you send us another 150 women.
Oh, hell no! Bruh. What? What? Send us another $150?
That little company became Bayer. Now you jump forward to the 80s. Bayer launches a hemophilia drug. They inadvertently contaminate thousands of specimens with HIV. They know that they've contaminated specimens with HIV, this drug with HIV virus. What do? They shipped it into third world countries, Africa and Asian markets, and infected 20,000 people with the HIV virus.
Bro, this shit is crazy here.
But you studied neuroscience.
Yeah. I'd postgrad at Harvard and Duke, but I'd retired from the military and then started having these seizures. So then I found a neurologist. The drug that they gave me, the number one side effect was seizures from this pharmaceutical company. So I kind of looked around and I found this guy's a functional medicine guy, and he got me on methylene blue. That instantly stopped everything. And some other stuff.
It was a fabric dye, right?
Yeah, in 1890.
How weird.
And
who the fuck drank it first?
it tastes like chewing an aspirin.
I'd take it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I take it every day as well. And
RFK Jr. told me about it.
Yeah, man, it's fantastic. And so this guy's injecting, in 1890, injects these rats with it and then does an autopsy on these things. And their brain, the brainstem, every single nerve is blue. So he discovered this methylene blue has an affinity for neuronal tissue. So he says, well, it's sucking into neurons. What's it doing? So we could talk about if you want to, but
sure,
how it's working and working in the body. So we started putting it in humans, and we found out it's an MAOI, which is just
monoamine oxide inhibitor.
Yeah,
yeah,
which helps with depression and anxiety and all kinds of life stress and stuff.
Does it cause side effects if you're taking any drug that you shouldn't take with an MAOI?
There are some studies that have been recalled that said you can't take it with SSRIs because you could develop serotonin syndrome.
Right.
But they did recall the study as far as I'm aware. And it is so incredible that it acts as an electron donor to mitochondria, especially your neuronal mitochondria. So it helps you produce more ATP, and it helps you get rid of this stuff called reactive oxygen species. So you have an oxygen molecule. It should have 2 hydrogens on it. And like your body's job is to convert stuff into water so you can pee it out. So if you get an oxygen molecule, it's got 4 or 5, 1, it's a reactive oxygen, which we call free radicals. So methylene blue goes in there and balances a lot of those things out in your brain and your nervous system. So it is a miracle, and it's been proven for 100 years. It's one of the most well-proven drugs out there.
What's the side effects of it? Are there any?
Not a bunch.
I would imagine if you're taking an MAOI, there's wild shit going on there. Yeah.
Like if you mix it with anything that has tyramine in it, like aged cheeses, red wine, you're not supposed to mix it. If you're on a high dose, though, but you're probably taking 1 milligram per kilogram. So you take maybe 40 milligrams a day to 80 milligrams a day.
And you put it in water, is that what you do?
No, I have these little trokes. It's like the consistency of a Starburst.
Oh, okay.
And you just cut them up, and they're 40 milligrams each. You obviously got to swallow them really quick, or your teeth are going to be blue for an entire day.
Yeah, it's a pretty potent dye. I see it in my pee.
Yeah. Well, I had to change the toilets in my house to black toilets because my kids take it, my wife takes it.
Jesus. To be essentially a brain expert and get a brain disease.
It was horrifying because I know where this is going to go. At the end of the day, your hippocampus, your memory center of your brain, is eating itself.
Whoa.
And during a seizure, you can lose up to about 1 million neurons a second.
Whoa.
And the seizures were like 1.5 minutes long. And they're not like shaking on the floor. A temporal lobe seizure, you're just kind of like, you're just out. Like you're unconscious.
You just seize up like Mitch McConnell.
Yeah, like you turn into a little zombie, your head falls down. And at the end of the day, I tried so many different things to fix it and stop these seizures. I was at a point of 9 seizures a day.
Jesus.
And I was desperate.
And you think this is because of the medication that they gave you that causes seizures, or is this just
I never took it.
Okay. So you had seizures, but the medication, why would they give you something that has a side effect of seizures?
I don't know.
If you're getting seizures.
And I don't know why you hear so much about these medical schools getting paid off by companies and stuff that don't really have our best interests at heart. And I think that methylene blue, you shouldn't have to tell a doctor about methylene blue. I think everybody should know about it.
Bro, this is some wild stuff right here, man.
A Cleveland Clinic study that just came out for the flu vaccine from the years of 24 to 25 showed literally no effectiveness for the flu shot. It was over 50,000 healthcare workers, and actually they were more prone to testing positive for the flu if they had the flu shot. It didn't change your risk of death, hospitalization, or amount of work days missed. Keep that in mind next time you think about getting that flu shot.
60% of the advertising dollars that come into mainstream media are from the pharmaceutical industry. And this is the point that just really keeps me up at night. The customer of the people making the news is not you. It's the pharmaceutical company. They are paying the bills. They are the customer. You are the product. And so because the pharmaceutical company is the customer, the information that we are getting from our news sources is going to be shaped to have a favorable message about that industry. And that trickles down into culture. That trickles down into what we believe and what we think is normal.
This stuff is deep, man.
Often it's the PBM who's in between the pharmacist, the doctor, and the health plan in terms of drug coverage. And one of the things that people are very frustrated with is that they don't know what the PBM is doing exactly with the costs. So how much are they paying for the drugs from the drug companies? How much are they charging the insurer? How much are they paying the pharmacist? Is sort of their middle.
Well, I think the simple thing that I would look at is, have they become successful financially, and they've become billion-dollar industries? By the way that I explained it the other day on a different podcast was, they're a coupon company that have become a billion-dollar coupon company. And the goal of this coupon company was ultimately to make the system more efficient. And somehow it's become less efficient as a result, at least to some degree, through some people's eyes. And I think one of the more confusing parts that I feel government intervention should play a role in is, how in the world can there be one entity that owns the same parts of this equation? Like you described, you have the pharmaceutical company, you have the insurer, and you have the patient, and you have the pharmacy. But now through vertical integration, you have one giant company owning all of these things, pushing money into different pockets, calling it savings, and then multiplying that profit.
Yeah.
So how is that allowed?
So there are really restrictions of how much CMS can get involved in the contracts between these different entities. And there was bipartisan legislation to really look at PBM transparency and give more authority to really understand what's happening. And it, we'll see if a future Congress considers and really tries to address these issues.
What happened to that bipartisan?
It fell apart. It was included in legislation, I think, I want to say at the end of last year, and then at the last minute didn't get through.
Let's talk about Big Pharma.
Yeah.
You know, I've heard that Big Pharma is the world's biggest lobbying organization.
I think that's accurate.
How much of the government do they control?
They only control the portion of the government they need to control, which is the FDA, which is the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS, and they're pretty effective at controlling it, actually. So a lot of the regulatory hurdle for developing a new medicine, that actually helps Big Pharma because it makes it harder for a competitor to scale that same cost of capital. You see what happened with the vaccines, right? The same FDA that says you have to take 10 years to develop a new medicine or a vaccine and spend billions of dollars. So much so that not only are we gonna not say it's safe, we won't even give an individual the opportunity to, in their own free spirit, with full information, try it. You don't even have the right to try it if it hasn't been through 10 years of testing. We, the government, will not give you that choice. Is the same government that then says, oh, but here's a vaccine that makes it through in less than 1 year, and you don't have the choice not to take it, your only choice is to take it.
A billionaire patient. This guy comes in, he's been to the Mayo Clinic 5 times in 2 years for 3-month stints at a time for a condition called aphasia, which is what Bruce Willis just retired from Hollywood. Your brain is thinking what to say, but your mouth won't say it. It is delayed. On the intake forms, he actually had 5 different prescription medications. 3 of them were cholesterol drugs, 2 of them were high blood pressure drugs. But I didn't know how long he'd been on them. I just saw them on there. and by name. So I went home and I wanted to know, of these pharmaceutical drugs, I wonder if any of these are published in peer-reviewed published research studies to be known to cause aphasia. I printed out these research studies, and as they're flipping through it, they had no idea that the cholesterol drugs had a published side effect to cause aphasia.
Whoa.
Can I ask you when you were prescribed these drugs? And he said, 3 years ago. I said, how long ago did your aphasia start? And he goes, 2.5 years ago.
Whoa.
And I said, okay, you're going to stop your cholesterol drugs today. He came off the drugs within 2 weeks. All of his speech was returned.
Yeah.
What?
Johnson & Johnson made more than anybody during the...
Is it just me? Or am I the only person mind is completely blown right now? And we not even like halfway through the video, and my mind is completely blown right now. Share this with the last person you text in your phone. I forgot to say that, but this is really crazy.
Opioid pandemic. They were doing what people do in the marijuana trade. They were basically juicing up and synthetically altering opioid plants to grow faster and more potent so they could turn them over quicker. And so they supplied all the opium into the United States and made billions of dollars. At this point in time, the DEA was getting involved, going to the FDA, going to all these governmental bodies and saying, look, this shit's getting crazy. Like, this is getting out of control. The addiction rates are through the roof. What Purdue did at that time was pivot and go out and educate doctors on breakthrough pain. These patients aren't addicted. They're just still in pain. And the way to fix it is to write them more opioids. So they launched a 200 milligram pill and gave people more opioids.
Oh my God. President Trump named me as Secretary of Health and Human Services.
Yes. Congratulations, by the way.
The biggest agency of government. It's twice the size of the Pentagon. It's got a $1.9 trillion budget.
Whoa.
Wow. And, you know, the irony of that is we spend more on healthcare in this country than any other country in the world per capita, 2 to 3 times what most European countries spend. And yet we have the worst health of any country in the world. We have the highest chronic disease burden on earth. And that, as you know, bleeds over into infectious disease, which has been really, infectious disease has been the focus of most federal expenditures in terms of research. Chronic disease is the destination of most federal expenditures in terms of health care. We have a sick care system in our country, and the etiology ultimately of all that disease is corruption.
The pandemic created at least 40 new big pharma billionaires. Pharmaceutical corporations like Moderna and Pfizer made $1,000 of profit every second from the... More than 2/3 of Congress received campaign funding from pharmaceutical companies in the 2020 election. Pfizer chairman Albert Bourla told Time magazine in July 2020 that his company was developing a vaccine for the good of humanity, not for money. And of course, Pfizer made $100 billion in profit in 2022. And may I just mention that finally, and this is also a fact, that you, the American public, funded the development of that. The German public funded the BioNTech vaccine. When it came to the profits, they took the profits. When it came to the funding, you paid for the funding. It's difficult not to...
But I will just add one thing. It is possible that these are greedy capitalists who made a lot of money, and also there are a lot of people who did need the vaccine.
Yes.
There are a lot of people who did need the vaccine. I never wanted to be told I was one of them who had to take it. But there were lots of people who needed that vaccine and would be dead without it. That is true too.
Bill.
That is true too. More facts.
All I'm querying is this.
Yes.
Is if you have an economic system in which pharmaceutical companies benefit hugely from medical emergencies, where a military-industrial complex benefits from war, where energy companies benefit from energy crises, you are going to generate states of perpetual crisis, where the interests of ordinary people separate from the interests of the elite.
Getting spicy.
The Rosetta Stone of understanding corruption. Our institutions, particularly the healthcare industry, has completely let us down. And you just step back and think about it. Pharma is the largest spender on TV news ads. It's the largest spender, Novo Nordisk specifically is the largest spender on foundational obesity research. It's the largest spender on medical groups like the AAP. It's one of the largest funders of actual civil rights groups. So you actually can't even believe this, but Novo Nordisk is paying the NAACP to say that not supporting Ozempic is a civil rights issue.
So you're racist if you're against giving kids a diabetes drug?
It's on the NAACP website, and the NAACP is a registered lobbyist for Ozempic, saying that you are a racist because there's disproportionate issues with obesity in certain communities, that you're a racist for not supporting government funding for Ozempic. Of course.
And the NAACP takes money from the drug maker?
They're a registered lobbyist for the drug maker.
How can the NAACP be a registered lobbyist for anybody?
They have a lobbying organization. They have to declare who their lobbying clients are. And as reported in NPR very recently, they are registered as a lobbyist for Novo Nordisk. And on their website, they're saying it is an example of systemic racism to not support federal funding for Ozempic. So this is what I saw working for PHARMA. You just have to ask who people trust. People trust the medical groups. They trust civil rights groups. They trust the media. You have a situation where, additionally, Novo Nordisk, and this is reported, has given $30 million in direct bribes to obesity doctors. You would be hard-pressed to find a doctor who treats obesity in this country who has not received some kind of donation, not research grants, but direct consulting grants from Novo Nordisk.
Like just sending him cash?
Exactly. So
how can doctors take cash from drug makers?
Oh, this is what's done. The drug makers spend hundreds of millions of dollars a year in direct cash payments to doctors.
But you can't get the drug except with a script written by the doctor.
Yeah,
a prescription.
Who take direct consulting fees from.
How can that be legal?
This is what you watch things about the opioid crisis and how the opioid completes the same playbook. I actually, when I was working for PHARMA, the opioid crisis was in full effect, and there was a panel in 2012, and the panel was full of outside experts recommending guidance on opioids. The head of that panel was a man named Dr. Philip Pizzo, who was the dean of Stanford Med School at the time. He was a pain specialist. At the moment he was appointed to that panel, Stanford received a grant from Pfizer, who's one of the largest opioid makers, of $3 million for pain research. He appointed 90% of that panel, who are also conflicted, who received direct research and personal consulting fees from opioid makers, and they relaxed opioid standards. This is exactly what's happening on obesity. You have Dr. Fatima Stanford, the head of obesity research at Harvard, paid tens of thousands of dollars by Novo Nordisk, just started a new...
Directly?
Not to mention, of course, millions of dollars of research grants. She's been paid tens of thousands of dollars.
How can Harvard allow that?
There are no conflict of interest rules in medicine. Harvard is supporting her, and the NIH recently, it came out that 8,000 research grants went to university professors who also have a direct conflict of interest with the topic and the drug that they're studying.
How can how can you be a physician, even a teaching physician?
Bruh, there's no rules, regulations.
You don't have to be a scientist. You don't have to be a doctor to have common sense. Now, the pharmaceutical industry do not want to cure people, because if they cured people, they'd go out of business, because everyone would be healthy and they wouldn't be needed. So why would they do that? Why would they ruin their own business? All they need to do is to keep you just well enough to keep needing their tablets. And that's common sense. I don't need to be going to university to work that one out.
Yo, this video need over 1,000 comments. Over.
Nobody's able to actually speak with nuance on pharmaceuticals. And here's my take on pharmaceuticals. And I've done like music video parodies making fun of pharmaceutical companies, but I still get called a shill by hardcore antithesis tribe members in any video I make. So the big pharmaceutical companies are an epiphenomenon. They're an emergent property of a capitalist marketplace that is not really capitalist. It's a kind of a oligopoly. So these huge entities that are actually molded by the regulations and the regulators that manage them in this dynamic way that then creates an oligopoly, because the only people that can afford to get drugs to market are these massive bureaucratic machines. They themselves are poisonous, horrible entities, because you have the marketing side that's pushing to consumers drugs that would be better avoided when you can just eat well, exercise, spend that money on education and food, and gyms and those kind of things. and just horrible business practices. They're a bunch of liars. They're manipulators. Absolutely awful human beings on that side, right? Then you get to the research and development side. These are the people that I know. I have a lot of friends in these departments. They are there to help humans. They're amazing scientists, doctors, pharmacists, nurses that work in these companies, and they're the ones that are driving the engine of innovation, right? It's the other ones that totally fuck it up. So, and the opioid thing was it was a great tale of how incredibly evil these companies can behave due to profit motive. So yeah, we ought to be absolutely suspicious. That's like when I listen to Malone talk about that, that's when I'm like, my brother, I'm with you. Like everything you're saying is resonating with me. Like I'm ready to storm the Bastille, right? And at the same time, like we would have to form a fence around those researchers that are doing the hard work and some of the smaller companies that are trying. And it's just the incentives have to change.
That's true.
We have the power to heal. The human body is a magnificent machine. When we thought we would hand over 32 trillion cells to big pharma and trust them with their poisons to change the direction of our health goes lost on me, right? Human beings were meant to do what we do right now. I'm telling you right now, if you don't load a bone, it won't strengthen. If you don't tear a muscle, it won't grow. And if you don't challenge your immune system, it will weaken. Human beings were meant to do what we are doing right here, right now. So one of these 5 actionable genes, when these genes break, we get anxiety, we get ADD, we get ADHD, we get OCD. Have any of you ever suffered from depression, or how many of you know somebody who has suffered from depression? Look at the hands in the room. 44% of this country is on an antidepressant.
I really am mad about the media. I mean, I spent my whole life there. My whole life. It was an honorable profession. It's not. It's part of the problem. The media are aligned with the people in charge to oppress the population of the United States through lying. Not just a part of the media, all the media. They're lying about the things that actually matter. And we'll have these fake debates about this or that, these little peripheral debates, but on the questions that actually matter, the economy and foreign policy, they're 100% aligned against the population of the United States.
Wow.
So that so deeply offends me that I thought we have to make an alternative. And the only way to do that is through a subscription service. Why? Because you cannot be dependent on advertisers, because advertisers will try to influence your output. So I'll tell you just one thing I learned. Okay, this is the sum total of the knowledge collected after 27 years in the business. Pharma ads are the #1 advertiser, pharma, on television. Right, left, center, doesn't matter. It's all pharma. How many people are actually asking their doctor for some drug they saw on television? So I asked someone who worked at pharma. Nobody. Then why are you spending billions a year to advertise in media? He goes, to prevent media from criticizing us. Oh, you're capturing the media through ad spending. It's not about the retail consumer. That's just a sideshow. It's about making sure that the executives of these news organizations never criticize pharma, the COVID vax, for example, period.
Man, it's a crazy game.
Let's say me and the team here, we come up with a cure for type 2 diabetes. What rules are in place to prevent me from charging $1 million a dose?
Well, there really aren't. Once FDA approves it and Medicare will cover your drug, it will depend on a negotiation of private companies like Medicare Advantage or the Part D plans, or the commercial market is going to decide, do I want to cover your drug?
It's crazy that there's no government intervention to some degree. And the fact that there are no checks is a bit weird. How come that never was established? Has there been pushback from the pharmaceutical side of things?
Yeah, so in Medicaid, there is government intervention. Like Medicaid gets a much better price. But, DOD negotiates drugs, VA negotiates drugs. But when Medicare...
But that's simply because of the amount that you're buying. So it's like still in the company's best interest to negotiate. But if I have the one cure, it's no longer in my best interest to lower prices.
That's right.
Definitely true.
So the more pharmaceuticals I'm taking, the more you can accurately predict my life expectancy?
The more accurately we can predict
why
your
is
death.
that?
So you take things, for example, like statins, right? So statins lower LDL cholesterol. There was a prevailing theory in medicine, which is vastly being disproven now, largely by artificial intelligence and big data, that when LDL cholesterol is up, there's an increased risk of cardiovascular disease. And so if we lower LDL cholesterol, we'll lower the risk of cardiovascular disease. The only problem is you're looking at that so myopically, right? You're just taking that one variable, LDL high, high risk of cardiovascular disease. LDL low, low risk of cardiovascular disease. It's not that simple. In fact, there's no correlation between elevated LDL cholesterol on its own as an independent risk factor and cardiovascular disease. None. Cholesterol does not cause atherosclerotic plaquing or narrowing of the arteries. Damage to the arterial wall does, and the inflammatory cascade does. And so what happens is, if you understand what cholesterol is, right, it's not a fuel source. Cholesterol is a construction material. So the body makes it. The liver makes 85% of the cholesterol in your bloodstream. And what is it used for? Well, we build every cell wall, every cell membrane, every hormone in the human body, and we use it to make vitamin D3, cholecalciferol, the most important nutrient in the human body, in my opinion. And so what happens when you push this nutrient low? Well, now you buy yourself consequences down the road. Now you're interrupting cell walls, cell membranes, hormones, vitamin D3, and now people get on a statin. Now their joints start aching, their memory starts to go. Now they increase their risk for Alzheimer's, early onset dementia. Cognitive decline is one of the fastest accelerants of aging. People that are in steep cognitive decline are not compliant with their medications and protocols. And so you've taken this one independent risk factor, and because you think you're lowering the risk of cardiovascular disease, you create this entire cascade of problems down the road. And we saw this over and over and over again. In fact, we did not process a death claim, not one, in my entire 22-year career on a centenarian that did not have elevated levels of LDL cholesterol at the time of their death.
Wow.
Not once. Interesting. Wow. But modern medicine would say LDL cholesterol is a risk factor for cardiovascular disease. No, it's actually a risk factor for longevity. High LDL and low triglyceride and high HDL cholesterol is a marker for longevity, not for cardiovascular disease. And so we believed a lot in what pharma and contrived medical trials were telling us was the standard of care, and the standard of care was killing people. Flatly, to be honest.
Do your own research. Do your own research, man.
United Healthcare is a bad organization. They deny coverage. They make it harder for people to get the things that they need. They will delay people from getting chemotherapy, from getting heart surgery. And they do it because they deny, not based on intelligent people looking at a claim, but based on algorithms that they use. Which means your health care, when you're covered by United, is potentially delayed. And delayed treatment can have devastating consequences. Corporations are not doctors. They shouldn't be practicing medicine. In California, it's against the law for insurance companies to undergo what we call the corporate practice of medicine. It is a corporation, United Healthcare, that needs to be regulated, needs to be broken up into separate parts, and needs to be carefully and tightly controlled because clearly they can't control themselves. They overpay their executives, they overpay their board of directors, and they do that because they think they deserve your policy dollars instead of having your policy dollars be used for your healthcare. What happened to the CEO is inexcusable no matter how bad the corporation is. But United Healthcare, right now, as it exists, is an organization that should not be practicing medicine and should not be doing the things that they're doing. They need tighter corporate regulation, much like we regulate utility companies.
Now, when you get sick, you go to the doctor, right? How much does it cost you to go in?
Nothing.
Nothing? Oh, my God. All right. In America, you get sick, you go to the doctor, you have an insurance plan, all right? And the doctor says, okay, your deductible has not yet kicked in. What does that mean? You got to pay it depending on the plan. And there are hundreds of different plans. On average, let's just say you're a family of 2-3 people, you got a $10,000 deductible. You know what that means? That before your insurance kicks in, you got to pay the first $10,000 out of your own pocket. You got that?
Yeah.
Now, if you got hit by a bus, all right, you ran up a $100,000 bill, it is likely the insurance will kick in the $90,000. But if you are simply sick, or your kid is sick, you got to come up with the first $10,000. And what happens if you're making $60,000 a year? You're going to say, you know what, I can't afford that money. So first of all, understand that the American people pay a whole lot of money out of their own pocket. Second thought, how many people do you know who have gone bankrupt in the UK because of medical bills?
No one.
No one? Oh my God. All right, UK, listen up. Here's the new one, new phenomenon for you. You now have the opportunity, if you move to the private system, to go bankrupt because of medically related debt. All right? Let's just say in America, here's the story. We have, I think, 320 million people. 85 million are uninsured or underinsured. That means uninsured, you got no insurance, period. You got nothing. Underinsured means you have a high deductible, a high copayment. So it's not only that you have to pay the first 10,000, you go in, you got to pay, if the bill is $100, you may have to pay $20 out of that. Got it? All right. You end up in the hospital, not unusual, a serious illness, surgery, cost you $200,000-$300,000. Your insurance is not going to cover all that. Let's say you have $50,000 in debt. You're a working class person. You can't come up with the $50,000. You're hounded for the bill, can't pay it. The best option for you is going bankrupt. 500,000 people a year in America go bankrupt. Your whole credit is ruined because you can't pay your medical bills. Okay? So, other than the fact that we have the most expensive healthcare system in the world, incredibly bureaucratic, with high deductibles, which force over 60,000 people a year to die because they don't get to a doctor on time. Jeez. Other than the fact we pay the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. It's a great system. Fantastic system. Think about it. All right, but the answer is, and I say this with all honesty, this country, UK, has a right to be enormously proud of what you accomplished way back in 1948. What you said to the whole world, and I, Bevan, led that effort, is to say, healthcare is a human right. You're poor, you're rich, you're going to go to the doctor, the hospital, doesn't matter who you are. An extraordinarily profound statement advancing human values. Don't give up on that. Strengthen your system. Put money into the system. Do what you have to do to make sure you have the doctors, the nurses, the other ancillary care that you have. Don't go the American way.
Jeez, bro.
My name is Matthew Gagliotti, and I'm the head of the Justice Department's Criminal Division. Thank you all for joining us today as we announce the largest coordinated healthcare fraud takedown in the history of the Department of Justice. Today marks a decisive moment in our fight to protect American taxpayers from fraudsters and to defend the integrity of America's healthcare system. We are announcing today charges against 324 defendants for their alleged participation in healthcare fraud schemes involving approximately $14.6 billion in false claims submitted to Medicare, Medicaid, and other healthcare programs. In a takedown this large, I can't possibly describe all of the work that went into dismantling each scheme, but there are 4 key points that bear emphasizing. First, let me be clear about what these healthcare fraud schemes mean for every hardworking American family. These criminals didn't just steal someone else's money. They stole from you. Every fraudulent claim, every fake billing, every kickback scheme represents money taken directly from the pockets of American taxpayers who fund these essential programs through their hard work and sacrifice. And when criminals defraud these programs, they're not just committing theft. They're driving up our national deficit and threatening the long-term viability of healthcare for seniors, disabled Americans, and our most vulnerable citizens. This enforcement action involves the seizure of cash, as well as luxury vehicles and properties, returning real money to American taxpayers and to our government healthcare programs. Second, we are seeing a disturbing trend of transnational criminal organizations engaging in increasingly sophisticated and complex criminal schemes that defraud the American healthcare system. As part of this takedown, we've identified and charged defendants operating from Russia, Eastern Europe, Pakistan, and other foreign countries. These individuals have infiltrated our healthcare system to steal American taxpayer dollars. As just one example, We dismantled a scheme involving a sophisticated operation run from Russia and Eastern Europe that strategically bought dozens of medical supply companies in the United States and submitted more than $10 billion in fraudulent healthcare claims to Medicare. To make matters worse, these perpetrators used the stolen identities of more than 1 million Americans spanning all 50 states to perpetrate this scheme and submit these false claims. But I'm pleased to report that federal agents intercepted and arrested key members of that organization at U.S. airports and the U.S.-Mexico border, cutting off their intended escape routes. The days of transnational criminal organizations using the American healthcare programs as their personal piggy bank are over. Third, this takedown resulted in criminal charges against 74 defendants, including medical professionals who fueled America's deadly opioid crisis for personal profit. These are not isolated instances of poor judgment. These are calculated schemes designed to exploit Americans struggling with addiction while enriching the very people who were duty-bound to help them heal. We charged pill mill operators who prescribed unnecessary opioids. We dismantled networks of corrupt pharmacies that existed solely to distribute drugs to addicts and dealers, feeding the addiction crisis that has devastated so many American communities. This is not healthcare. It is a staggering breach of trust. And under my leadership, the criminal division will prosecute these criminals as aggressively as we would any drug dealer, because that's exactly what they are. Fourth, many of the defendants charged as part of this takedown specifically targeted our most vulnerable citizens, elderly Americans in nursing homes, individuals with disabilities, those battling serious illnesses, and more. For example, our prosecutors charged 7 defendants, including 5 medical professionals, in connection with approximately $1 billion in fraudulent claims to Medicare and other healthcare benefit programs for performing medically unnecessary skin grafts on dying patients as they were seeking to spend their final days with dignity and peace.
What?
That conduct is exactly as callous and disturbing as it sounds. Patients and their families trusted these providers with their lives. Instead of receiving care, they became victims of elaborate criminal schemes. Today's takedown marks a historic day. In addition to the tireless work of our Fraud Section's Healthcare Fraud Unit, this extraordinary effort would not have been possible without the law enforcement agencies with me here today. Health and Human Services, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and the Drug Enforcement Administration. And of course, countless partners across the federal, state, and local law enforcement community and dozens of United States attorneys' offices. Thank you to all who made today possible. Now, despite these historic achievements, we aren't resting on our laurels. We're making advancements to stay ahead of their criminals and their illicit schemes. That is why today I'm also announcing that we are working with our partners at FBI, HHS OIG, and other federal agencies to create a healthcare data fusion center to revolutionize how we detect, investigate, and prosecute healthcare fraud. These efforts will be led by the Criminal Division, specifically the Fraud Section's Healthcare Fraud Unit, and comprised of data specialists from the unit's data analytics team. The Fusion Center will break down information silos using coordinated data analysis to enable our investigative teams to quickly identify and dismantle emerging fraud schemes, preventing money from going out the door. Today's enforcement action represents the largest healthcare fraud takedown in American history. But it's not the end. It's the beginning of a new era of aggressive prosecution and data-driven prevention. Thank you.
$14 billion.
This is very new.
Yeah.
To most people in the zeitgeist of the common person, the common person who's just trusted their physician and trusted the medical establishment. I don't think I think it requires a real shift in consciousness of people and a real understanding of what's going on.
But there's pings of that consciousness happening. Like, that's why I think the leadership is so damn important here, Joe. It's like when this stuff is under the shadows, and when the FDA is able to lobby to fund the organization that's supposed to regulate it, when the USDA is when food companies are lobbying, to have the USDA not have any conflicts of interest, when these things, there's not attention on them, and Americans aren't being explained this like mass corruption that's compromising all of our scientific guidelines and standard of care, where $4.5 trillion of incentives flows to.
What?
Hey, Dr. Willis here from Advanced Functional Medicine in San Diego. I read an article recently by the National Institute of Health that talked about statistically between 1920 and 1940, there was approximately 7.5% of the U.S. adult population that was living with a chronic disease. And I think we can all agree, since the early 1900s, obviously, we didn't have access to health care as much as we do now. But you fast forward, and then in 2020, that same statistic revealed that 60% of the U.S. adult population was living with a chronic disease. 60%. That's 6 out of every 10. That's an 800% increase since World War II, essentially. So the question is, why? With all the advances in technologies and all the new pharmaceuticals that we have, you would think chronic disease would be eradicated by now. So what we're doing is obviously not helping. Masking symptoms with drugs is not helping. So this is why functional medicine is so effective, because it's always been about root cause. We step away from that conventional model to dig deep into the body to uncover what's driving a process. And I could tell you, with all the exposure to things now that we didn't have in World War II, essentially the pesticides, the insecticides, the herbicides, the fungicides, the plasticides that we're exposed to, the processed foods, the chemicals, the high fructose corn syrup and food color, food dyes, shelf life enhancers. I mean, all the chemicals that we're ingesting in our body, the genetic modification of food, the air quality, water quality obviously has changed, and we're just slowly poisoning ourselves. And there isn't a pharmaceutical on the planet that's going to do anything about it at all. I mean, we really have to find a better way, a better path, and that's what functional medicine provides patients. And I've seen people that have had cardiovascular disease, they have autoimmunity, diabetes, thyroid issues, hormone problems, memory that is starting to go. And once we run their tests and get them on a pathway or a roadmap that suits their body and their physiology, they start coming out of it. We have to open our eyes to this. We really have to focus on this. We have to make changes on the conventional level. I mean, insurance companies, yes, they've adopted that drug therapy model, but they did it only for reasons of financial reasons. That was it. It makes good money, and you can see a patient in a couple of minutes. I mean, you walk in, you listen to symptoms, you prescribe a drug, they go away, the next one comes in. So I'm hoping that this reaches enough people to sort of open your eyes and know that there's better ways out there. There are truer answers if you look for them.
All right, guys, that was another TikTok compilation, man. I told you this one right here was going to be crazy. If you made it this far, you a real one for real. Make sure you put that in the comments, man. If this one don't get 1,000 comments, I don't know what video. This was mind-blowing to me. If you in the comments and you got any type of story or any type of, just put it in the comments, man. Put it in the comments, man. Health is wealth. Self-love and positivity. Take care of yourself, man. Till next time, I'm gonna say it again. Self-love and positivity. Fire Squad, I got you and you know it.